Welcome to Level 1 of the 2019 Alan Gray Entrepreneurship Challenge. The level this week is going to be dedicated to the theme of an entrepreneurial mindset. In the very first week of the challenge, we are really aiming to help participants understand what entrepreneurship is, and further to plant the seed of entrepreneurial intent within their young, bright minds. In doing so, we're aiming to grow their thinking through metacognition, that is, stimulating the growth of their mindset by helping them understand what a growth mindset is and why it's important for entrepreneurs to have one. Later in the week, we encourage them to start thinking about the specific type of business or enterprise they would like to run in the future. And towards the end of the week, we will be introducing them to the notion of data and how it's used in the real world of business. The micro challenges that learners will be attempting next week will be centric to these pivots. And so we really encourage educators to prepare learners to succeed in the very first week by utilizing some classroom time to facilitate a short but stimulating discussion with learners around these pivots. Consider starting off this classroom discussion by maybe asking learners to speak about what they feel entrepreneurship is and what it means to be an entrepreneur. In doing so, it may be valuable to also ask them to mention the names of some successful entrepreneurs or business people that they know of personally, and this can include local and/or international entrepreneurs. If, however, the classroom remains quiet, maybe stimulate their interest by asking them if they know who Lira is, the singing sensation in South Africa, an entrepreneur that's created her very own brand and who I believe is also now a judge on a local singing show on television. Maybe ask them if they know who Mark Zuckerberg is, highly relevant because most of them will be using his product, which is Facebook, of which he is the founder. Or maybe even DJ Spoo, the local entrepreneur and DJ followed by most high school students in SA. It may also be useful to ask the learners in the classroom about why they use the products and services of some of these entrepreneurs, like why they would be downloading some of Lira's music or using Facebook. This activity is really intended to make entrepreneurship personally relatable for the mind of a young learner. Following this, think about introducing them to the notion of a growth mindset by maybe asking your learners about any skill or ability that they do not currently have, but maybe that they intend to develop or grow over time for their future plans. As an example, if a learner wants to be a stage artist but maybe currently has stage fright, or if another learner wants to be a singer at Lira's level but doesn't feel confident with their current singing ability or vocal abilities. Or perhaps if another learner wants to be in the school's top 5 matriculants in time but feels that they don't currently have sufficient skill with mathematics as a subject. Think about using these examples from the learners to demonstrate the importance of acknowledging limitations and constraints in the real world and the importance of always having a growth mindset to expand their skills and abilities over time. Coming to the final part of your classroom discussion this week, think about focusing on data. Maybe ask the class for 5 volunteers and get them to come to the front of the classroom. Maybe think about explaining that very often data is just simple information that is listed in a table, all whilst drawing an actual table on the chalkboard with 5 rows on it and maybe 3 columns. In the rows, write down the name of each volunteering student at the start of each row and maybe describe the row as being referred to as a record, maybe explaining that there are now 5 records in the table, 1 for each learner. Then in the 3 column headers of your table on the chalkboard, think about writing down a few elements that pertain to these 5 volunteers. So maybe their age, gender, or their favorite subject, and maybe their favorite hobby perhaps. Explain to them that each column is called a variable in the table. So rows are the records and columns are the variables. And now ask each of the 5 learners for further information pertaining to those 3 variables. That is to say, get each of the 5 volunteering learners to tell the class about their age, their gender, and their favorite subject or their favorite hobby. and use this information to fill in the table on the chalkboard, all while explaining at the end that now we have what's called a data set, which is simply a table of information telling us certain things about these 5 students. Don't forget at this stage to explain what a variable is through the bucket analogy, where you liken a variable to being a bucket, saying that only certain values can fit inside each of these buckets. As an example, for the gender variable, the values of male and female are the only 2 possible values that can fit within that particular bucket. You can't have numbers in the bucket called gender. Whilst for the bucket called age, you can only have numbers as the possible values in that bucket, and that too only positive numbers. After using this exercise to explain data, data sets, variables, and records to the class, maybe think about concluding this discussion by explaining that in the real world of business, this information or data about these 5 learners can be very valuable to entrepreneurs who want to sell certain products or services to them, since it tells the entrepreneur about what these learners are interested in and what their preferences are. In doing so, these 20 or 30 minutes of classroom time can be super valuable in helping to get them prepared to face the challenges coming their way next week. So we highly encourage educators to invest this time into preparing them to give their very best. That's it for now. Thanks for watching this video update, and remember to send out a shout out to info@entrepreneurshipchallenge.co.za if you have any questions around this update or the challenge in general. Until next week, stay strong and keep them going strong.